Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stinchfield. I don't need to tell you this, but I will. Washington is an absolute mess. The United States Senate is an absolute mess. Democrats, once again, have derailed a plan that was started to get bipartisan support for John Thune to get the government open. 3 spending bills with the continuing resolution that he thought he could get some support from Democrats to get this thing back open. Instead, Democrats now feel emboldened by their expected victories on Tuesday night, and they're not budging. Schumer instead offers up a deal to extend Obamacare subsidies for another year. That will most likely be a no-go for many Republicans. Here's Chuck Schumer.
Democrats are ready to clear the way to quickly pass a government funding bill that includes health care affordability. Leader Thune just needs to add a clean 1-year extension of the ACA tax credits to the CR so that we can immediately address rising health care costs.
First off, why didn't you even propose this 3 weeks ago, right? I mean, you could have had Republicans talking about how they would do this, if they would extend it for a little bit, started negotiating, but they didn't even push this. This is no bright idea. This is what they want all along. And I'm sure it has to do with getting illegal aliens health care, okay? So this is John Thune, who is now clearly upset about the Democrats still standing in the way of a deal that would get this government back open.
If I were a Democrat, I would be embarrassed. I mean, flat out embarrassed to walk into this building every day, to walk past the men and women of the Capitol Police who are not getting paid thanks to Democrats, to walk past junior staffers, many of whom are undoubtedly frantic by this point as they wonder how they're going to pay their rent.
Yeah. As you walk by your fellow senators who are getting paid, by the way. That has to be changed, whether it's constitutionally or however. You got to get that done. These senators should not be being paid. They are. So are members of Congress. So we're being told there may be another vote that John Thune will bring up tomorrow. I'm not hopeful that it'll get this government open, but this is Trump, and he spells it out like only Trump can.
We have a shutdown, as you probably know, because the Democrats have gone, they're crazy. They're crazy, but they don't care if they hurt the country. But we've approved it 14 times. We've approved a opening up 14 times, and they keep rejecting it. And I guess maybe they will again. Let's see what happens.
So again, they shut down 10% of air travel. Air traffic controllers aren't being paid. Do you know the CEO of Frontier Airlines? You know what he's recommending to his customers? Buy a second ticket on another airline for another later hour in case your flight's canceled. Buy another ticket on another airline. That from an airline CEO. It's insanity. This is Secretary Duffy giving another dire warning if something doesn't change soon.
To assess the pressure in the airspace and make decisions that may, again, move us from 10% to 15%, maybe to 20. I don't want to see that. Or, by the way, if controllers start coming to work and the pressure goes down, we can move those numbers in the other direction. Again, this is a moment-by-moment assessment. Again, doing all we can to make sure travelers are safe as they move through the airspace.
So in the end, we want the government open so we can get home to our families come Thanksgiving, so we can get our troops paid without having to go through all kinds of rigmarole games, so we can get federal workers paid. That's the bottom line, and Democrats standing in the way. So what needs to be done to make this happen? Is there anything that Republicans would be willing to negotiate on? I want to bring in now Unleash Prosperity Principal Phil Kerpen is back with us. Phil, it's great to see you.
Grant, my pleasure.
All right, Phil, Republicans call you in and say, hey, Phil, what should we do here? What's your message to Republicans?
I think the Democrats have become intransigent at this point. You're dealing with essentially a hostage situation. I'm sympathetic to the president's view that they should just nuke the filibuster, but I don't think they need to go that far. What I would recommend they do is another reconciliation bill. That's an established process that can be used to get around a filibuster. And I think they should do a reconciliation bill that has an explicit fund in it, a shutdown relief fund that would be a mandatory spending pot that the president could use to pay people during a shutdown, to prioritize things during a shutdown, so that he would have the resources to make sure the country can operate and to put the pressure back on the Democrats to come to the table on appropriation. So that would be my recommendation. Let's use the tools that we have to sideline them and get the country back moving again, get people back to work. And I think the process to do that is the reconciliation one that they used earlier this year, rather than try to go nuclear, because we know if you go nuclear, next time Democrats are in, that you were going to get Puerto Rico, DC statehood, 15 members of the Supreme Court, national vote by mail, and all the rest of it. Let 20 million illegals vote, and we'll never win again. And so, I want to stay short of nuclear if possible. So that would be my suggestion: is let's see how we can use that reconciliation process to give the president the funds to at least pay the people who are working and bring some other operations back online.
The other side of that is Schumer's not going to be the leader if they ever take control. This party's gone so radical. God forbid you get anybody else in there. Schumer's an old school guy. They'll end up going nuclear. And when we had the chance, we didn't. And they do all those things you said anyway. But I want to get back to what you said about this other continuing resolution. So you're telling me it doesn't need 60 votes in order to do this. And it sounds like a very simple thing to do. What are they waiting for?
Well, it's not. It's actually a pretty complicated thing to do. Remember, this is the process they used for the big, beautiful bill earlier this year, the reconciliation process. You got to pass a budget resolution, then you got to go through committees. They've got to write their parts. You got to go through vote around. There's a lot of process to it. But the bottom line is, by recasting these operational funds as mandatory rather than discretionary through this kind of a process, they could pass them in a way that sidelines the Democrats and gives the president the resources to pay people who are working, get some other people back to work. And so it's not a perfect solution, but it is one that, even though it's a lot of process, I believe it's one that could be used and should be, given the intransigence of the Democrats.
Does the House have to be called back in, and you've got to meet on this, the Senate? Okay, so you've got to call them back. What do you think?
Back to do this process, the House would have to come back. They'd have to do a budget resolution. There'd be a lot of process before we could get to that point. But frankly, the House's continuing resolution has almost been overtaken by the calendar, just by how long the shutdown has been. So I do think we're going to see the House back sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Why then? And it almost makes me angry that they weren't thinking about this before, because truthfully, you could have been running this process literally as a negotiating tool against the Democrats. Look at the road we're going down, Democrats. You have this option, or we're going to do this. Instead, they wait 3 weeks. They could have been doing this from the start.
Grant, if they'd really been smart, they could have put a $500 billion contingency fund for shutdowns in the last bill, in the one big, beautiful bill, and the president would have already had it at his disposal. So I don't think they really anticipated the Democrats going this route, and they were caught a little bit flat-footed.
Well, Phil Kerpen, this is the reason why we get you on. Not a lot of outlets are offering up solutions. Unleash Prosperity is, and we're happy to have you come here and offer that solution up. Maybe Thune and Johnson are watching, and we'll take your advice. I hope they do. Phil Kerpen, thank you, as always.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Absolutely, you too. All right, folks, so we'll see. But Democrats need to do something, and I like Phil's idea. If it starts moving this ball down the court, let's do it. I also am not against the filibuster anymore. I'm not, because I'm convinced the Democrats will throw that out and do all the things that Phil mentioned, like making those places like Puerto Rico and DC a state. It'd be disastrous. All right, so we now have, and we've talked about this before, what I believe is the Islamic takeover of America, and I believe Mamdani is just a piece of that. There are other sides to this. There are homegrown terrorists, ISIS, Al-Qaeda style terrorists being activated right here in the United States. This Halloween terror plot, we've talked about it briefly on here. But this terror plot seems to be expanding Our friend, the acting attorney, U.S. attorney in New Jersey, Alina Habba, was announcing more arrests, including this guy, Thomas Jimenez Guzel. He basically had vowed to carry out ISIS beheadings on camera, okay? He wanted to memorialize his actions, those terror attacks, in a Wikipedia page dedicated just to him. He was interviewed once by the FBI, miraculously, back in 2024 for predicting a, quote, newsworthy attack. That's one of the guys that got arrested. Alina Habba had this to say about him and the other suspects in this case.
From around October 4th, 2024 to November 4th, 2025, Tomas Khan Jimenez Gazelle of Montclair, New Jersey, and Saeed Ali Mareh of Kent, Washington, along with other co-conspirators, used encrypted messaging applications to plan travel to Turkey and then to Syria to join ISIS as fighters.
It's really quite amazing, and the mainstream media doesn't want to cover these stories because this is a result of Joe Biden's open borders and him completely taking his eye off the ball of Islamic terror, and of course to focus on J6ers and all of you out there. This is another picture of the suspect with a gun and a kifa, and I'm telling you, homegrown terror is very, very real. Another suspect was caught on surveillance at a gun range with a gun. Now, there's no crime with going to a gun range and practicing firearms unless you plan on using them against American citizens in a violent, terroristic way. So how many more of these goons are out there? How big a problem is this? Well, I'm going to bring in now former FBI special agent and author of A Cop's Son, Kenneth Strange, is back with us. Kenneth, it's always great to have you on the program.
Thanks, Grant, for having me on.
All right, Kenneth, how concerned are you about ISIS-style terrorists here on U.S. soil, basically being recruited by ISIS and the other things that we're seeing?
Oh, I'm absolutely concerned, and there are many more groups like these particular cells. I mean, the plot itself is chilling, and it reads like a James Patterson thriller. You've got encrypted chat lines, and you have all types of gun ranges and secret meetings in parks and code. They're talking in code and all that. But I've got to give credit to Kash Patel and the FBI for conducting this textbook operation. But yes, to your question, they're out there. The Biden administration has made it that much more difficult for us to detect these folks, and the environment is very hostile. Islamic radical Islam has gained traction over the last few years, and it's just being marinated by the media, by the press, the media, universities, you name it.
Do you think they are being recruited by Islamic terrorists overseas in the Middle East? Or do you think they're being recruited here by simply what they're reading online, and you've got other activated cells here in the United States recruiting them? How do you think this is happening?
Yeah, I think most of it, Grant, is ISIS inspired. It's kind of this lone wolf mentality, which they're reaching out to these younger. Look at the ages of these young men. They were 16 to 20 years old, so they're hardly mature. And I'm not a scientist, but I'm sure their brains are not fully developed. But I think a lot of this is being whipped up by the media. Like I said, the universities. You just have a more pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic outlook out there, which just makes it that much more acceptable for them.
What is the best advice out there to make sure we stop these people? Is there things that people, if they see them happening, and I'm really specifically thinking about parents, if they've got a teen son that's going down the wrong way. I know it's hard for a parent to blow the whistle on their kid, but I think that's going to be the first group that's going to see something that's strange with their child.
Grant, spot on. It all starts at home. And, I've worked in the past in Muslim communities with the FBI. and I've met some wonderful families, and they were strong families, and they didn't have these type of kids, runaway kids, if you will. So my advice is, number one, stay vigilant, remain vigilant, and I'm talking about the FBI and our local state partners. But also, I think it's incumbent upon us to engage with community leaders out there as well, Muslim community leaders, and also stress the fact that if you see something out of the ordinary, report it immediately. And finally, and this worked for me when I was doing work in the Muslim communities. I actually went out and I talked to some of the imams in the mosque. And yes, there were some that kind of turned me away, but there were others that were very accepting of me. And we actually formed a friendship. There was a dialogue. And on occasion, they would call me and say, look, this guy is a troublemaker. He's trying to take over. He's a bad apple. You ought to check him out.
Yeah, it's that kind of cooperation for every type of crime in communities, between law enforcement and communities, that it takes to really stop crime, whether it's terrorism or whether it's street crime. But that's the kind of cooperation we need. I worry, as I push what I believe is the Islamization of America and a takeover here, tensions are going to get heightened between these imams and the warning signs that we're pushing. But I hope the FBI, as you said, stays vigilant. They did a great job here. Kenneth Strange, it's always great to see you, the author of the book, A Cop's Son. I urge people to read it. And we always appreciate your insights, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant.
Absolutely. All right, folks, turning now to that assassination of that Mexican mayor who was such a supporter of President Trump and pushing back against the cartels. Well, his wife, after his assassination, is now speaking out. We've translated this speech for you. Watch.
Carlos Manzo's legacy will continue even if they have silenced his voice, even those who gave the order to take his life in the cruelest way. This will go on. This will continue.
Well, Carlos was a critic of the Mexican government, specifically President Sheinbaum, for not pushing back against the cartels and accepting President Trump's help to take them out. In fact, she seems to be doing the exact opposite, supporting the cartels. I want to bring in now Real America's Voice correspondent Oscar Ramírez is back with us. He is in Mexico. Oscar, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Grant. It's always an honor to be with you.
Oscar, I had made mention yesterday that they go and assassinate Carlos Manzo for speaking out. You speak out every day in Mexico. Is this being escalated, this war against anybody who sounds the alarm on the cartels and the drug violence? And quite frankly, I've told you before, but I'm worried about your safety.
Well, Grant, I have said this multiple times. There's no other way. We have to be this way. We have to speak out. They're killing the good ones, Grant. That's what they're doing. The assassination of Carlos Manzo last Saturday, executed at broad daylight in front of his family. It was just, it lit a fire in the whole country. The whole country, it is completely upset. On November 15th, they're going to do a nationwide protest against the narco government of Claudia Sheinbaum. And that is not only it, Grant. What has been happening in less than a week, it is going to completely shock you. They have assassinated 5 police officers in the whole country of Mexico. Just yesterday, they assassinated one right here in Tijuana. And not only that, yesterday, around 6 o'clock in the evening, they assassinated in San Juan, Oaxaca, a councilwoman, Guadalupe Urban. So this violence keeps escalating and escalating in our country.
All right, I want to play a clip from you from the leader of your country, Sheinbaum, and it doesn't sound good here. Listen to this.
Going back to war with the narco is not an option. Firstly, because it is outside of the framework of the law.
So she's specifically, I believe they're talking about President Trump going to war against the narcos, but all of this plays together. Your thoughts about what she said there?
She is saying that it's illegal to go against a war against the cartel. President Sheinbaum, let me say this with all due respect, you are completely incompetent. The cartel doesn't take no illegal action when it dismembers, when it decapitates, when it kidnaps, when they extortion. when they leave bodies outside on the street. That is not illegal for you. It's supposed to be illegal, and you should be going to war against these criminal organizations that they were designated by the President of the United States of America as terrorist organizations. You are letting the Mexican people die alone, Grant. They're killing the good ones. They're killing the good politicians that they're fighting, and they're pushing back against this narrative.
Do you think she's on the payroll of the cartels?
Grant, to say that it is, I will be in a little bit of an uncomfortable position. But what I can say, it is that she is definitely receiving orders from somebody else to not go to war against them. The only way to eliminate and eradicate this problem is to go to war with them and to eliminate. We are sick and tired of this analogy and this ideology that all hugs, no bullets. It hasn't worked in 7 years. And it is clear as day to the world that we need help.
All right. Lastly, it seems to me as if the people are rallying around what you're telling me, that the cartels cannot be tolerated as you see these mass graves in Mexico, as you see all these assassinations. By and large, are the people of Mexico, you see the protests here against the cartels, on your side, on our side on this, Oscar?
Yes, Grant, we're sick and tired of it, Grant. We're sick and tired. They're killing the good ones, Grant. And hopefully on the 15th of November, we will see a rising of our people fighting against this narco government, because they're contaminating the future, Grant, of our children and the future generations. And we are sick and tired of this. Hopefully, the people will understand. And now the people are opening up their eyes. We're sick and tired of it, and we need help. There's no other way to describe it. We need to fight this, and this problem needs to be resolved.
Well, your strong words, Oscar. I believe you are a hero to the Mexican people. They ought to be praising you beyond belief for putting yourself at risk for this fight to take your country back from very evil people. I'll give you the last word briefly, if you can.
We have done this multiple broadcasts and coverage for Real America's Voice News, exposing the evil. This is, as everybody says in the United States of America, it is in a spiritual war. We need Jesus now more than ever. We need God more than ever. And it is not only a war over here in Mexico, it's a war in the United States. Also, the United States is fighting their own wars. We need to all unite to fight this together and eliminate this problem, by within, Grant.
Well, Oscar, I believe God is looking out over you, and I urge everybody out there to pray for Oscar and the people of Mexico pushing back against these cartels. Buddy, thank you so much. Please stay safe.
It's always an honor to be with you, Grant. Thank you.
Buddy, the honor's mine, 100%. And again, folks, I'm going to reiterate that. Pray for Oscar. He's right in the middle of that country. He's not an American citizen. He can't come home to here. And when I say home to America, our home, he's in Mexico, and he's right there in the middle of it. So again, if anybody needs your prayers right now, it would be Oscar. All right, folks, gold is up around 40% this year, and if a portion of your savings isn't diversified into gold, you're missing the boat. Here's the facts. Inflation is still too high, the U.S. dollar still too weak, and the government debt is insurmountable. This is why central banks are flocking to gold. They're the ones driving prices up to record highs, to record highs. But it's not too late to buy gold from Birch Gold Group. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. To get started, just text America to the number 989898. Claim your free info kit. No obligation, just useful information. Text America to the number 989898. All right, California's gerrymandering bill is now under legal fire. We will talk to the man behind that fight against Gavin Newsom and their quest to take Congress from us. It's next.